Over the last few years of banjo building, there's been one nagging question that I could never get out of my head. This question led me on a long, often frustrating journey, which involved biking around town, collecting bottle caps off the street,
Absolute jackpot next to the Ralphs.
melting plastic in my garage with a panini press, and drinking multiple 2-liter bottles of Cactus Cooler. But in the end, I succeeded. And now, the world will know both the question and the answer. What if a banjo was waterproof? For the neck, I wanted to use some of these old weathered boards that I've had laying around. They used to be deck boards on this bridge in Paramount Ranch. Paramount Ranch is a really popular filming location, or at least it was before the Woolsey fire. So I'd imagine these deck boards have showed up in a lot of movies and TV shows over the past couple decades. So there's a little bit of history there. And I just love the weathered look of them. They were throwing them all out. I took these literally out of the dumpster, so I'm really glad I grabbed them, because they're very cool. And I really wanted to preserve that weathered surface. So the idea was going to be to just initially cover all that in epoxy. And then once I had that all set up and cured, I would basically proceed as if it were a normal neck. And just cut it out on the bandsaw, take it through the normal shaping with the rasp and the files, sanding it, just like I would any other banjo. And in order to make these necks waterproof, it was pretty simple. I just painted a few coats of Total Boat marine epoxy on them. It took a few coats before I was satisfied, but it really did the trick. It worked great. It was a little tedious waiting 24 hours for it to cure, then sanding it, doing another coat, repeat the process. But I'm really happy with how it came out. In this batch of 3 waterproof instruments that I made, I decided to use a coconut for the first one, because coconuts are already naturally waterproof, and I've been wanting to make a banjo out of a coconut for a long time. I approached this just like I would if it were a gourd, although I noticed it was a lot harder than a gourd, and yeah, they're very strong, those coconuts. And that brings us to the plastic head. One sort of core idea of this project was to use as many recycled materials as possible, so you could consider almost everything except for the gourd and like the epoxy and the strings. Other than that, I think every component was recycled or repurposed or reused in some way. So for the head of the banjo, it was kind of a no-brainer to go with a 2-liter soda bottle, which is made out of PET, and the reason why I use that stuff is because it actually shrinks with heat. So I can attach it firmly on the rim of the gourd with epoxy, let the epoxy cure, and then I can just carefully hit it with a heat gun, and that brings the head up to tension. Now, I couldn't find any 2-liter bottles, so keeping in line with the theme of the project, I had to go out and buy a couple 2-liter bottles of Cactus Cooler, and I couldn't just dump it out because that wouldn't be recycling it. I have to use it in order to reuse it. So I had to polish off those Cactus Coolers, and nobody really wanted to help me, and it took me a little while, but I did it, and I swear to God, I drank every drop of it. This didn't work so great the first couple times, but if I flipped it upside down and clamped it and then used the heat gun to get the edges to kind of curl up on the side of the coconut or the side of the gourd, then it would squeeze the epoxy more onto the side and create more of a bonded surface, and it would work a lot better. Although on future builds like this, I'll have to come up with some kind of plastic tack solution to give a little extra support, because the epoxy alone isn't quite enough. I'm really surprised about the tonal qualities of the plastic, though. You wouldn't expect it to be that great sounding, but I think it stands up to a lot of skinheads that I've heard. I really like the way it sounds and feels to play. And here are all my bottle caps from my bike ride. These are all made out of HDPE, high density polyethylene, which is sort of the go-to type of plastic for at-home recycling DIY stuff like this. And that's because it is very workable. It has a pretty low melting point, and it doesn't give off toxic fumes when you melt it like some other kinds of plastics do. And yeah, it's a very commonplace material that we deal with pretty much every day, but we maybe don't give much thought. That's what was kind of cool about this whole project for me, is basically taking trash that you wouldn't think twice about and making it into something cool. I end up with this block. This was my first attempt. This was going to be a tuning peg. I took the block of plastic and treated it basically like a piece of wood and just cut the tuning peg out and shaped it just like I would any other peg. I was feeling pretty good at this point. Everything was going well. I had this nice smooth surface, this nice taper, but it broke because all the layers of plastic weren't really bonded together properly. I didn't melt it enough, and with this panini press kind of method, it's a bit harder to get everything all homogenized together into one structurally sound block. We just used this laundry detergent up, so I rinsed out the container and started cutting it up. Started melting that stuff down. I figured with the bigger pieces and it being all one color and everything might make it a little easier to hold together. And I really couldn't get over how cool it was to take like a piece of trash and convert it into a solid block like this. I really have to thank the YouTube channel Brothers Make. If you're interested in doing this type of thing with plastic, definitely check them out. They have a ton of videos that really go into depth about how to recycle plastic at home and make things out of it like this. I pretty much learned all this stuff from watching their videos. And this yellow peg here actually worked. This was my first successful recycled plastic tuning peg, so I got very excited about this, and I got right to work on making some more. I got the neighbors to give me their old detergent bottles, and I just went to town here mixing up these three colors. Mixing up the colors like this gives it a really cool, swirly, marbled pattern. At this point, I had stopped using that Teflon and just was putting it right down on the panini press, which seemed to work better, actually. And these pegs worked out really well, too. I was having some beginner's luck with these pegs because it really went south after this. But yeah, having two pegs in there felt really good, and they turned incredibly well. It's really a great material for a friction peg. I also made the tailpiece out of the recycled plastic. This is mostly bottle caps from the side of the road, and I think there's a little bit of laundry detergent container thrown in there. And then it was already time to start setting up this first coconut banjo. I got the tailpiece on, and then for the 5th string nut, I just cut a plug the way I normally would. Super glued that in there, and cut it to size. That worked very well. Made a little laundry detergent bottle nut. Glued that thing down in there. And to get to this point where I had 5 tuning pegs, I had attempted to make probably 20 tuning pegs, and most of them broke or sheared off. So I was ready to experiment with some different stuff. And through my experimentation, I found milk jugs were really the way to go. These gallon milk jugs are made out of HDPE, and something about them, not all HDPE is created equal. It all has its own sort of characteristics. And I found that these milk jugs would really melt down well, and then when they cool, they would be much harder and a little more rigid than other types of HDPE that I had been working with. And I might even go as far as to say that these melted down milk jugs are the best material for tuning pegs that I've ever used. Even better than, like, ebony wood. Okay, that's not true, because ebony wood is great. But these are shockingly good. I mean, they turn incredibly smoothly. I ran into the same issue, though. I mean, it's just the method I'm using, my clamp isn't very good. I did have a lot of failed pegs, even with this material. It's just so hard to get it really structurally sound. You have to melt it and clamp it really hard and put a lot of pressure on it to get out any air bubbles and just make sure everything is bonded together in a really, really solid block. But I got better and better at doing that. You can see this stuff I've really melted with the cap in there. That red is just from the cap of the milk jug, the red cap. And at the very end of things, I was trying to refine my process even more, so I took 2 blocks of this mahogany and cut a negative into each one of a peg, basically making a little mold. And this actually worked really well. You can see it all squeezing out, and I wind up with this pancake thing. But I cut the peg out of that, and this method worked better than any that I have yet tried. So I'm excited to make more pegs using this method. And that's it. I made 3 instruments in this first run. I made the coconut banjo, the waterproof gourd banjo, and the waterproof gourd ukulele. And I was lucky enough to try these banjos out with Phoebe Sanders, who you may know. She's a much better banjo player than me, and if you don't already follow her on YouTube, you definitely should. So we both independently had this idea to make a waterproof banjo.
And they sound great. We've been out here for, what, like 2 hours?
Probably,
in the water. We went and jumped in the ocean, and I don't think I've had to retune mine once. It's pretty great.
Yeah, that got pounded by the surf and submerged.
We've been going underwater, doing all sorts of fun stuff with these. But yeah, here, I'll play it and slowly submerge it in the water so you can hear. It sounds like it's dying. And now you got a banjo full of water. Okay, let's see if I can float on my back and play.
Oh, that's a good idea. I can't.
Not quite.
I can't do it. Yeah, let's do it.
So here we are a little while later. I'm still loving the coconut banjo. I still play it pretty regularly. The ukulele did not hold up to my very rigorous stress testing, which included leaving it in a hot car on purpose. That's what kind of did it in. I didn't show it in the video, but I made tuning pegs out of just cured epoxy. I just carved it. I just let the epoxy cure in a block and just carved it out of that. They looked cool, but they didn't hold up. The plastic is much better. And then what I'm pretty certain is the world's first ever gourd banjo, waterproof gourd banjo, #1 in human history, is currently in the esteemed Phoebe Sanders collection. And but before I parted ways with it, I took it up on a little hike to Cucamonga Peak. I strapped it to the outside of my backpack and I carried it all the way up to the top and then camped on the top of the mountain with it. And it was really fun. It almost killed me. I barely made it. This is supposed to be a hiking compatible instrument, but I think this has just encouraged me to try to go even lighter. Definitely smaller, and I think I can go even lighter. Yeah, I definitely want to make more of these, more coconuts, and especially more gourds. I think the way I'll probably have to do it is sort of like limited run releases of like 3 or so at a time, just whenever I'm able to find the time to get them done, and hopefully they will be available for sale. These are really cool, and I want to make a lot more of these. So stay tuned and keep an eye out. Hopefully I'll be getting another batch of these done. That about brings us to the end of this video. I was really looking forward to this for a long time, getting these done and getting this video out. This is something I've been really excited about for a good while now. And yeah, especially the plastic stuff has me really fired up. Taking trash and making something out of it is it's just crazy to me that these were laundry detergent bottles and now they're tuning pegs. So yeah, I'm very inspired by the whole plastic thing, and I'm gonna be doing a lot more stuff like that. And yeah, thank you for watching.